Lesson 4. Work Environment, Measurements, Properties, and Cost Estimate pages. On the right side of the document, we find Measurements, Properties, and Cost Estimates BOQs. From the Measurements page, you can open the list to be used to compute the model entities. You can open lists stored locally on your computer or access the price book on the online database. Price lists can also contain analyzed features. If necessary, you can also open multiple lists at the same time and close any unnecessary documents. By choosing the price list and searching for the price list item, you can drag it to the bottom section to automatically activate the interface, where you can choose the entity selection method. There are two automatic and one manual method to select and/or locate entities to be accounted for relating to the IFC BIM model. Selection method. Automatic from similar entities. With this method, you can automatically discover entities by defining rules according to the selected entities. In practice, selected at least two entities of the same type allows the software to automatically locate all other similar objects. Selecting the first entity, it will be represented in red, and at the same time all entities belonging to the same type will be highlighted in yellow in these examples. Entities of different types, such as windows, doors, etc., are offered in transparency in order to facilitate the selection of entities of the same type. Selecting a second entity of the same type by using the combination Shift key click mouse, the second wall is also represented red. At the same time, automation identifies green entities that have the same characteristics to the only two selected objects. Let's look at some examples. All interior walls of any thickness in the chosen level. All walls 40 cm thick at any level. Partition walls with the same orientation. With this method, you can automatically determine the entities to be accounted for based on the conditions set by the user. Selecting in red color an entity or multiple ones of the same type, a list of its properties will be produced. Choosing between the properties of our interest, it will be defined a condition that allows the automation to identify only the entities corresponding to the filter and/or criterion and the switch to the custom automatic selection method. Let's see some examples. Identify all windows with a specific geometry. Identify all 30 cm thick walls. Selection method, manual. With this method, by manually selecting the entities in the model, Shift key plus click mouse, I will detect those to be accounted for in the quantity takeoff. Measurement rule. Once the entities to be accounted for are identified, we go over to the definition of the measurement rule using the properties of the entities as reference. First, we'll define the rule title, in which we briefly report all that differentiated to easily identify it in cases of reselection. Below we find the fields to create the measuring stuff. We can insert descriptive information useful for identifying the entity being measured. For example, wall 001, wall 002, and so on. In the description field, it is also possible to combine text written by the user and variables related to the values of the entity. For example, wall external ID. In this example, each measurement line will also include the entity identifier in the description. In the following fields dedicated to dimensions, we insert the variables linked to the values of the entity, such as length and height. As needed, it is possible to combine variables and values written by the user. In addition to being able to define a negative measurement control for any deductions, Using the toolbar buttons, it is possible to add multiple measurement rows, delete or move from one row to another. WBS. The schedule can be structured into WBS, an unlimited number of subdivision levels default. WBS can be added and associated at the moment of the creation of the measurement rule, or manually added or acquired by drag and drop from Primus documents .dcf files on the respective general data pages. When the WBS are input in the general data of the document, at the time of the rule measurement creation, they will be proposed in the respective lists as you can associate them with features. Selecting the End button will close the measurement rule and produce the list of all accounted for entities with their respective quantities. Selecting the measurement rule, all the entities in it accounted for are immediately identified in the BIM model in green. By selecting the measurement line, on the other hand, the entity to which it refers is identified in the BIM model, always in green. The measurement rules, entity plus processing plus measurements, created in a project can be reused in other projects thanks to the possibility of saving them as a model or as template, set on multiple models in special archives. The loading of models and or cost estimates BOQ templates into a new project determines the quantity takeoff of one or more entities of the model in the IFC format. Matching between entities and cost estimates BOQs models takes place dynamically only if the entities on the new project meet the conditions of the measurement rules of the chosen model template. At any time, you can replace items that have been accounted for with others taken from other price book references. To activate the replace function, you need to press the Ctrl button on the keyboard and release it on the item to replace within the BOQ. Once replaced, the measurement rules of the previous item will be associated with the new item. In addition, the unit rate of the new item will be updated in the cost estimates BOQs together with an updated total amount of the entire cost estimate BOQs. Properties pages. In the properties pages, we can view the classification, size, geometry, and other properties belonging to the selected IFC entity. Ultimately, we can view all the information written in the IFC file for each individual IFC entity selected on the model. From the Cost Estimates BOQs page, you can access the general data of the document in which project information and info can be entered and defined in WBS with which to organize the document. The Cost Estimates BOQs page also has the following sections. Full shows the full cost estimates BOQs with all the BOQ data and all measurement details. In this section, the data, description, size, quantity, etc., takes the place of the variables used when defining the measurement rules. Selected, where all items, entities accounted for are listed with one or more selected entities of the IFC model. To view the information, you must select one or more entities from the project. Price list, which shows features that were previously dragged into the measurements. Using the buttons on the right of the Cost Estimates BOQs page, you can print the Cost Estimates BOQs, save the Cost Estimate BOQs in the primus.dcf native format, export the Cost Estimates BOQs in Word and Excel. Take advantage of the integration with Primus in order to use the professional version of Primus to integrate other BOQ data, measurements and quantities which are not detectable by the entities of the BIM model in the IFC format. In order to use the integration with Primus function, the Primus software must be installed. The integration process creates a dynamic connection between the two software to exchange the estimate and cost data information. Processes, measurements, quantities, etc., coming from the entities of the BIM model in the IFC format. Once the integration is completed, closing the Primus software will cause the cost estimates BOQs to be updated with extra items and cost data. Unlike saving the file in the .dcf format, the integration with Primus function allows you to keep the cost estimate BOQs information connected to the entities of the BIM model in Primus IFC. The entire panel with the measurements, properties and cost estimate BOQs pages can be resized as desired according to the needs or completely closed to reopen it only when necessary.